He's got a Vans Trump shirt. I know, right? And America great.
I love it.
How can you not love that?
That's awesome.
Kishida and Ishiba were essentially, cutouts of the American Democratic Party. Absolutely crazy here in Japan under Kishida and to some extent Ishiba after that, which really butted heads with, Japanese traditions and culture and things like that. So a lot of Japanese felt that they were being hijacked by, essentially U.S. globalists and particularly the U.S. Democratic Party, until this new party, Sanseitou, emerged. And now Takaichi, as the conservative embodiment of the original concept that former Prime Minister Abe was assassinated in July 2022.
登録者131万人のアメリカ保守層の YouTube チャンネルクラウダービッツが日本はアメリカの最強の同盟国だと言い切り、トヨタの社長がMAGA TシャツでNASCARに現れると彼らは大感激。アメリカ保守層がこれまでになく日本推しになっているのです。と同時に日本では保守回帰の流れが起きています。かつて高度経済成長期には日本人はアメリカに強く憧れ、アメリカが正しいという空気が社会全体を支配していました。しかし今の日本は全く違う。一部の若者においては自国の歴史、文化、伝統を冷静に見直す気持ちが芽生えつつあり、その上で自然体でアメリカ文化も受け入れる。アメリカ一辺倒でもなければ韓米でもない。そしてその動きが分断国家であるアメリカの保守層に刺さっているのではないでしょうか。今回紹介するアメリカ保守層の番組と日本でもおなじみ元在日アメリカ海兵隊幹部ロバート・エルドリッジ博士の分析。この2つを見比べると今何が起きているのかが見えてきます。動画の中では安倍さんの事件に関する興味深い考察も。ぜひ最後までご覧くださいね。
I want to present to you something.
I did it on purpose.
We've talked about this before. When people talk about our greatest ally, no, it's not Israel. It's not even close. The Japanese. The Japanese have been... Japanese, here's the thing. They really do appreciate America. And I think what we love most about the Japanese is it's an entirely different culture. They seem so un-American. Like their accent, it doesn't even function in our language.
No.
But they embrace all things American. So... let me lead this with last week, Toyota announced a $10 billion investment in the United States, including about $900 million to actually expand this hybrid production at 5 United States plants here.
It's a $10 billion bet that Toyota is making when it comes to production here in the United States. A lot of that money will be spent
they make you a
on
neck.
EV and hybrid production and battery production. And today the company is beginning battery production, at a new plant in Liberty, North Carolina. Tariff rates are more clear with Japan. That certainly has helped. And I think, look, like all major companies in Japan, I think they telegraphed with the administration, at some point we're going to be making another big commitment in terms of investment in the United States. And that's what they're doing today.
And Toyota, just so you know, all references available, link in the description, they employ about 50,000 Americans. And up until recently, this is an important number, actually, Lane the Brain found this, credit to him, the Toyota Camry was the most American-made car. That takes into account components, assembly. That was from 2015 to 2016. And now it's the Tesla Model 3. But there's something in the fine print there. If you look at Toyota, they have 50 H-1Bs. Tesla has 1,090.
Wow.
20 times the number of H-1Bs. Think about that for a second. What would you consider more American-made? A car that brings in foreign labor at cheaper rates to take jobs that could go to Americans, or a place like Toyota that employs Americans. They come here, they set up shop, they open a plant, and Americans work for that company and assemble largely American-made cars.
And they're not even an American company. Tesla is.
Right.
Yeah. In theory, they should have more American cars.
Yep. So he was at NASCAR. We're going to show you the outfit is unbelievable. He's got a Vans Trump shirt. I know, right? And America great.
I love it.
How can you not love that?
That's awesome.
Just, you know, they're so logical and matter of fact. The Japanese, and I think this is one of those things that is very emblematic of sort of male relationships. Like, we nuked their country, and now we're friends.
Exactly. We got into a fight,
Yes.
and then it made us stronger afterwards.
Basically, we, you know, kind of, I guess you could say, not destroyed their country. We did a number on them. That's fair. We did a number on them.
The number
And
was
none
two.
of us predicted that they would become America's booster club. And that's what they are now. Here, look, here's case in point how much the Japanese love American culture.
A bar in a basement where the heartbeat of Tokyo is Texas.
They do love karaoke.
It's the theme song.
Wow.
Yes.
It sounds better in Japanese.
It does.
Good for them. I will pray the feeder.
Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone!
I love it. I love it. Again, who would have thought this? That they are a cheerleader for the United States in many ways. And you don't see the same kind of anti-American sentiment. Like after what happened with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you know, you're talking about not that long. Elvis, they were paying attention because he's still big there. There's so many Elvis impersonators. Don't step on my persuasion. And there's a lot of investment in the United States. Like, great, good. And this is an example of, in Toyota, they talked about how we actually want to build where we sell. And they were saying, you know what, we don't blame the United States. And we can pull this up. There's a quote. He said, we don't blame the United States with the tariffs. That's not what we're not upset about that. We understand it, and we want to work with our American allies. And when you look at the amount of revenue that's been generated through these tariffs, look, there's going to be some growth and some shrinking. There are going to be some ripples that take place. But the Japanese are a good example of how to handle it. And they're an example of what a friend should be, unlike Canada. Also, later this week, President Trump is expected to sign an executive order replacing Diwali with Toyotathon. So that's fun.
Finally, a holiday we can all get behind.
次に、チャイナアンスクリプテッドという YouTube チャンネルで、ロバート・エルドリッジさんが日本の若者の保守回帰の流れの解説をしていましたので、そちらをご覧ください。
But there is this sense, at least out here, that these Japanese young people, they're maybe hard right or like anti-immigration. They don't want non-Japanese people in the country. A lot of things that, you know, some Americans, some Europeans would like, other things that, you know, other people are like freaked out about. So like what has changed with this new generation?
Several years ago, when the voting age was lowered to 18, and I want to say that was about 7 or 8 years ago, because my daughter became eligible to vote at that time, and I wrote an academic article about that at the time. The younger people, rather than becoming radicalized like we see back home in the States, if anything, they were questioning, where did Japan go wrong? Where's it going off the rails? Why isn't it living up to, you know, the hope and the expectations that previous generations had of the country? And if anything, they were looking for answers that brought them to, I think, respect, you know, Japanese history and culture and traditions more. And probably the reason for that is that in their compulsory education, which goes through the end of middle school, so, you know, 15 or so, and then for those that went on to high school, those that went on to college, they were basically denied an opportunity to learn about their modern history in favor of, you know, the rote memory, you know, test exams. And they got exposed in recent years, particularly, you know, thanks to the internet, to alternative, you know, sources of information rather than the mainstream media. And like in the US, the mainstream media here in Japan tends to be, you know, on the left. And so on the left here means, you self-hating, anti-Japanese, kind of stuff you'd expect in China or Korea or maybe North Korea. And so a lot of the media here adapts that narrative of self-hating, self-loathing. And so the youth were, over the years and much of the post-war were exposed to that. But now I think thanks to the internet, thanks to the fact that the generation before them, so I would say in between, my age group and their age group, maybe, those in their 30s and 40s, they began to really question stuff that they've been taught. And so they're still like looking for answers, but they become a whole lot more confident and believe more in their history and their culture and traditions than other generations in the post-war did. And then matching that with the so-called conservative wing of the LDP brings that youth, supporter with that I'd say older, more conservative group. And they were represented by Abe, who was unfortunately assassinated 3 years ago, Takaichi today, things like that. Unfortunately, after Abe stepped down in 2020, he was succeeded by his chief cabinet secretary, who was kind of like a powerless individual. And then the next two prime ministers, Kishida and Ishiba, were essentially, cutouts of the American Democratic Party.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Just like the wacky policies, the COVID stuff, everything, interventionism, globalism, the LGBTQ, XYZ, whatever that stuff is. It just went absolutely crazy here in Japan under Kishida and to some extent Ishiba after that, which really like butted heads with, Japanese traditions and culture and things like that. So a lot of Japanese felt that they were being hijacked by, essentially U.S. globalists and particularly the U.S. Democratic Party. And the previous U.S. ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, he was actively involved in facilitating certain legislation here in Japan. So he went beyond the role of a traditional ambassador, which is to promote your own country's point of view, and actually getting involved in the details of legislation within Japan. So that caused a huge backlash in Japan. So this was happening 2022, 2023, 24. Now we're in 25. In 2022, there was an upper house election, and a party that you alluded to before, that's anti-immigration. I don't think that's correct, but they're described as anti-immigration. They won the first seat in the upper house. And then last year in the general elections, which is for the lower house, which is more powerful house, they won a number of seats. And then in the upper house elections this summer, they won even more. And the next time they have elections in Japan, they're expected to do even better. And so that party has challenged the ruling party, which was dominated by essentially identical to the U.S. Democratic Party, even though they're supposed to be a conservative party. There was a huge gap or opening, among the Japanese public about who the conservatives were or who represented the conservatives. Nobody was representing the conservatives. The only choice voters had was the LDP, but they were so closely identified with the U.S. Democratic Party that the LDP members started leaving the party, as I alluded to before, and they basically, really stopped turning out to vote until this new party, Sanseitou, emerged. And now Takaichi, as the conservative embodiment of the original Conservative Party, is in office. They're hoping that she's able to kind of recapture the conservative vote in Japan. So her popularity is extremely high, but the LDP's popularity remains pretty low right now. So there's a gap between her popularity and the LDP itself.
Well, I can see why this resurgence of interest in like a strong Japan, maybe Japanese nationalism, that's kind of a loaded term, but like a love of like a strong Japan and Takaichi kind of embodying this. I could see why the CCP would be a little nervous about that. Especially, I mean, I really can't believe that Shuijen, the consul general in Osaka, did the joke about assassinating Takaichi in the context.
I don't think it was really.
It's not a joke. Yeah, that's not the right word. But like basically threatened that in the context where like Abe was assassinated.
You're right. But living in Osaka as I do over the past 35 years, he's been here for 4 years. He is, as I alluded to before, he's an extremist. He's off the rails. He's the embodiment of the wolf warrior, diplomacy. I'm sure he's doing it at the direction of, his government and the CCP. I don't think it's a coincidence. Although I'll mention I don't have evidence for this, but I don't think it's a coincidence that former Prime Minister Abe was assassinated in July 2022, and this consul general arrived the year before, and Abe's assassination took place in the prefecture next door to where the consul general is located. So,
when you say you don't think it's a coincidence,
I think you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
いかがだったでしょうか。アメリカ保守層が語る日本への敬意。日本の若者が歩み始めた保守回帰の潮流。アメリカへの理解を示し、多額の投資をする日本企業。アメリカ文化を楽しみながら、同時に自国の歴史や伝統を誇りに思う日本人。その裏側で、政治においては、日本の進路をめぐる激しいせめぎ合いも続いています。今日紹介したエルドリッジ博士の指摘には、日本が今どこに立ち、どこへ向かおうとしているのかを考える上で、無視できないヒントが詰まっていました。日米の絆の光と、その陰に潜む緊張。皆さんは今日の2つの視点をどう受け止めましたか？感想をぜひコメント欄で教えてくださいね。立ち上がれ、日本人。ご視聴ありがとうございました。